Then we go to this story now with the National Employers of South Africa Association being opposed to the proposed implementation of a 10% import tariff on steel, and that's to protect South Africa's industry, specifically the struggling ArcelorMittal. And last week, the International Trade Administration Commission, or ITAC, released its initial findings after a wide review of steel tariffs in the steel industry in South Africa. And the organization found that due to the unprecedented global trade environment, which we've discussed extensively on this show, and the impact on steel imports to South Africa, which amount to 35% of our domestic consumption, these have left South African steel companies at risk of collapse. Now we speak to Gerhard Papenfus, who's the CEO at NIASA, the National Employers Association of South Africa, for his reaction. Good evening, Gerhard. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello, Gila. Thanks for having me.
So NIASA believes that these tariffs on steel imports will impact downstream industries, specifically in engineering. Just explain how this could work.
Well, let me start off by saying that there are already tariffs on all steel products, all the importation of all steel products. And specifically, I'm referring to raw material, flat steel as well as long steel, which is the big thing in flat steel. It's 10-20% and more duties. In terms of long steel, structural steel, the duties are beyond 50%. So it's extremely high, and this is coming from 2015. So we've seen over the last 10 years the devastating impact that is having on the downstream. The moment your raw material, the price of your raw material increase, the price of your product increase, you become less competitive. And we've seen that in the steel industry because of the duties on the raw products. We've lost. And not for that reason alone. There are other reasons that play a role, definitely, without a doubt. But the price of steel is a very important element. We've seen the industry losing 200,000 to 300,000 jobs over the last decade. So all of this has been done to protect ArcelorMittal. Now, our view is, if you start protecting an entity and that entity cannot exist by itself, then it will, at some point, it will no longer exist. You cannot forever protect an entity through duties whilst its client base is diminished. Yeah.
Would domestic producers not then turn to ArcelorMittal if the imports were more expensive?
Well, if you, the point is this: if you will, if the buyer of steel want to buy the cheapest possible steel, most affordable steel. Now, you can get cheaper steel, and I'm not talking about cheap steel. It's good quality steel at a better price. You can do that if you import it. Now, of course, there are problems at our ports, and there's rail problems. I understand that. But you can import for a cheaper price, for a better price. Cheaper sounds as if it's cheap steel. It's not cheap steel. The problem, if you prevent that from happening, your competitors outside of South Africa, they buy that steel, and then you can no longer compete with them. So in the case of ArcelorMittal, ArcelorMittal need protection in order to stay competitive. But the moment, now you have to buy from them, but you're no longer competitive in selling your product. Your customer in South Africa can no longer afford it, and you see that your customers get less. They disappear, and you cannot export your product. So this is what's happening, and what we've seen in the steel downstream, and they also, it's like if you put a thermometer into NIASA, you see what's happening with the economy. The bloodshed that's happening in the steel downstream is it's very sad. We see it day by day, how companies are retrenching, getting rid of staff and closing their doors. This is a terrible situation we find ourselves in. And as I said, electricity prices have contributed, logistics, rail, roads, all these things have contributed, but the price of steel is a problem. And what we've been arguing for is to be allowed to import affordable steel. Now, it sounds terrible. It sounds anti-South African to say that, because what will happen if AMSA closes? Well, the fact is, trying to keep it open results in many downstream companies closing their doors.
I mean, every decision always has an unintended consequence, and it's the decision and it's the role of government and the regulators to try and mitigate that. What ITAC put forward, International Trade Administration Commission, was saying that it is an unprecedented trade environment, and because other countries have moved to protect their steel industries, of course, including the United States, the European Union, there's concern that they'll actually just be dumping in South Africa.
Well, I hear that. You rightly say, that the moment you protect one entity, it prejudices another entity. That's the game. So here we have those that say protect us, and there are those that says no, we do not protect. Now, if you protect a finished product, if you protect a manufacturer of a finished product against imports, a finished product, then there's an amount of certain amount of sympathy from my side, but you cannot protect the raw material. You must give people manufacturers access to the raw material, and when you talk raw material, you also talk about intermediate goods, goods that are used to make other goods. Now, if you interfere there and you make that expensive, then the person that utilizes that stuff, he goes out of competition. He can't compete anymore. So it is complex, and the problem is when the state interferes, this whole thing is so complicated. I mean, the latest thing that's been published is the state, wanting to protect 600 items and all types of kind of way that they want to protect it. It is too complicated for a state because a product consists of many elements, and some of the elements in that product are also imported. And it gets so complicated that it gets impossible to manufacture. And when you travel between Pretoria and over Tambo, next to the road, you'll see all those warehouses.
Yeah.
This is where manufacture has gone. And this is why the country is deindustrializing. And that is why we have unemployment in this shocking level of, unofficial unemployment is 45%. And this is where it's going. Now, I'm the last person that says this is not complicated. It is complicated, and I think the natural response is let's protect, but it is too complicated. The state cannot regulate the importation and dealings with 600 products, and everyone needs to write wants to trade. Write a letter and get exemption.
Gerhard, the state does already have tariffs on other goods, but I want to just talk to you a little bit about the other companies, the downstream companies that could be affected, and just lay a picture for us of what kind of companies those are.
Everything. No, everything. The latest attempt, the Gazette that's been published on the 600 products. I mean, it's about everybody will be affected. And what is strange about this whole thing, that there are products, only 9% of the products are protecting companies that actually manufacturing the finished product. The rest, that I understand to some extent, but the rest manufactures. And if the price of the product that you buy in order to manufacture increase, that impacts the price of that thing flows through to the consumer, And that consumer, if he can't buy anymore, that impacts on this thing. And you see that the moment a price increase, your output, your sales is affected. So it is affected not only everybody in the steel industry. It is affecting each and every South African, because steel is almost in each and every product you buy.
Of course.
There's some form
and it's
of
so
steel
vital
in that
to the
product,
economy.
and that will have an increase in the price. And now that's a very attractive thing for a government, because where does the duties go to? It goes to government. It's a form of, that's an income.
Right.
That's a tax.
I did see some commentary out of the United States during that, while we still have this entire tariff episode with the United States, that anything above a 15% tariff makes those products unaffordable, and less than that, I don't know if that research hasn't been applied to South Africa, so I'm reluctant to just take it and apply it across. But a 10% tariff was seen as acceptable when the US was discussing tariffs.
Well, I hear that, but a 10% increase of anything is 10%. Now, you're talking about the United States, and what is going to happen with this thing in the United States? It's too soon to tell.
Yeah, it's absolutely too.
It's soon to tell.
I just want to get to this, Gerhard. You're encouraging your members to give feedback. They have around 2 weeks to give feedback to ITAC. Have you started that process?
No, we already invited them, and tomorrow there's a webinar with one of our partners, if you can call it that, will explain the whole thing to members. So we say get moving. This is a situation where you need to wake up and understand this is very serious. Of course,
and no one wants further job losses in those downstream industries. I just want to change tack very quickly on another subject, just as we wrap up. And Niasa and Sekaliga were taking the Employment Equity Codes to court. They are supposed to be applied from the 1st of September. Where is that court case up to?
Well, it's an urgent application, Gila. So it was heard, how many days? Almost 2 weeks ago. Yeah, just a week and a half. Well, we expect a judgment towards the end of the month. I'm talking about, end of the week.
So it's soon.
But soon. Must be soon. But you can't say. The judge said that he'll attempt to do that by the end of the month. So we are waiting in anticipation. See what's going to happen.
All right. Thanks so much, Gerhard Papenfus, the CEO of the National Employers Association of South Africa. 14 minutes before 7, we'll check in on the roads with Fifi Matsela for the final time this Tuesday.